Hello and welcome to the tip of the week. Today I'm just going to touch on characteristics of a healthy relationship. I have talked about this in other tips, but I haven't given this particular information specifically. This comes from the work of Dr. John Gottman, and he characterizes relationships by looking at very specific things, and they're easy to identify, and then he recommends ways to improve relationship. So if you know anything about John Gottman, he is a scientist that has been studying relationships for about 35 years. He has the world's largest collection of empirically based data on relationships, so he's not theorizing. It really is, all of his work is based on fact, and I love his work. He'll often say, I don't know why this is, but it is. And so I like it for that reason. He sort of just says, this is what works and this is what doesn't. This is what you should do and this is what you shouldn't do. And all of the work all of the research he's done applies to intimate relationships, professional relationships, relationships with your children, and relationships with your coworkers, and in team environments at work. So he calls these predictors for successful relationship, and the predictors are this. He says if you have a 5-to-1 ratio of positive acts to every one negative act, so 5 positive acts for every one negative act, you're in pretty good shape. If it falls under that, the relationship's probably not in very good shape. And positive acts can be anything. It can be a kind gesture, it can be eye contact, it can be a smile, letting someone know that they're welcome in your presence, body language, a willingness to be influenced by someone, intently listening to somebody, all the little things that we do intuitively in our relationships that we might not really notice, or that we might take for granted. All those little things that come intuitively to us. So you could probably think about a bunch of different things that happen throughout your day, where it's like small extensions of yourself, where you connect with a loved one or with someone in your circle of influence. So keep track of how often you're doing that, and make extra effort with the people that maybe you do have more difficulty with, just to try and improve the health of the relationship. The next thing that he recommends is that we increase positive actions during times of conflict. Now, I know that that's easier said than done, but it certainly helps. I know that my husband and I practice these tools together. So if you are in a heated conversation, or you're having a conflict with somebody, and I don't mean a conflict that's completely blown out of proportion where people are triggered and flooded, but you're in an argument, you're having a difference of opinion, you're having a tough time, there are things that you can do in the midst of that argument that will help de-escalate the conflict, but it will also help balance the energy in the relationship, and it will contribute to the health of the relationship. And some of those things are as follows. You can demonstrate something called a repair bid, which means you might use a little bit of humor. Be careful with this one. You don't want to insult the person, or appear as if you are under concerned, or you're making light of it or being disrespectful. But if you can pull off the humor piece, it's very, very helpful. So if you can, sometimes my husband will say something funny in the middle of a fight, and we'll both burst into laughter, and we forget even what we were fighting about. So humor is a way of bidding to somebody. Letting someone know that you really care about them, demonstrating that you're listening, softening your tone of voice, softening your body language, and softening your facial expression. Often when we're in a conflict, our face will be scrunched up. Softening the facial expression, maintaining eye contact, accepting influence. So really listening to what someone says, and letting them know that, yeah, you can understand what they're saying. You're willing to be heard by them. You want to understand them more. As human beings, that is a primary need that we develop around the age of 6 years old, and that is the need to be known at a deep, deep level. So if we can let somebody know that we're seeing them, we're understanding them, we want to understand them, that really goes a long, long way. And he recommends nurturing fondness and appreciation. So that means, like, look at the things that the qualities that you like in the person, the qualities that you appreciate in the person, and let them know what those things are. Try to put a little bit of the focus on that. This doesn't mean that we're trying to brush off our conflict or sweep it under the carpet. It's not that. It's just that if we can do these things, the conflict will not seem so difficult. It won't take such a toll on us or the relationship. It will maintain the health of that relationship that sustains us both. Um, and finally, he recommends decreasing toxins. You've all heard me talk about toxins over and over. Um, Decreasing the tendency to use defensiveness, blame, um, contempt, and stonewalling. And please know that as human beings, something that we develop early on in life is something that's called defensive attachment. Defensive detachment. You'll see it in children, but we adults also do it, and it really is designed to protect us from being wounded in our relationships, because when we're in relationship with people, whether we're working with them, they're in our family, they're in our circle of influence, to some extent, if we let someone in, we give them a little piece of our heart. And when conflicts happen or when things go wrong, our feelings get hurt very easily. Human beings are one of the most vulnerable species on the planet, so we have this ability to protect ourselves through defensive detachment, and that means that we will behave as if we don't care. We will avoid eye contact with people, and it's our way of sort of pushing ourselves away from the thing or the person that might hurt us, and it's generally someone we are attached to that we do that with. So it's a very natural response. It's a very natural instinct. We need to protect ourselves from harm. And if we are in a relationship with somebody that when we're having a conflict, notice our tendency to become defensive. If you do that, and talk about that with the person. If there is blame that comes up, because blame is saying your fault. It's your fault. It's your responsibility. Um, if there's blame in the relationship, we cannot resolve the conflict. So we have to be able to set blame aside. Finger pointing just keeps us stuck in a cycle of conflict. And contempt really is just where we can no longer see another person's positive qualities. And so if we are able to put the contempt aside and we can nurture that fondness and we can look at what we do appreciate about someone, that counters that. And finally, stonewalling really is a last resort. It's when we have been triggered so often by an event or a person that we begin to avoid them. So really want to nip it in the bud at blame. So when we're having conflict especially, try to decrease the use of those toxins. Um, so yeah, if you want to keep your relationship in good health, these are some of the things that you want to focus on. And know that, everything in life happens in the context of relationships. Sometimes in workplaces, people think that they have a role as a manager or a leader and they shouldn't have to be so concerned with these things. But the truth is, everything happens in the context of relationship. And if our relationships are good and you and I have a good connection, um, especially if I'm a leader, you're going to be more likely to want to do the things that I need you to do. But if we don't have that connection, if we aren't able to make that eye contact and we don't have an understanding, you don't feel welcome in my presence, you don't feel liked by me, and vice versa, the work will never get done the way it needs to get done. So for anyone that feels like, oh, this relationship stuff, I don't have time for it, it is of critical importance. Everything we do happens in the context of relationship. So have a great week. We'll talk to you next week. Bye.